we are, guys. Disciplined Priest. How are they playing? They're playing pretty damn well as long as you've got some capabilities on this. We'll go over all the abilities, the talents, the skins of the artifact. All that stuff will come up. But right now, let's talk about this thing. At first, I did not enjoy it. I thought it was crap. They've done a lot of reworking since then and have gotten the tuning down to where it feels good. Are they still the Kings of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Nope. Nobody's the Kings of S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, guys. What this is, and I will call them the Kings of Sustain, and they are also the Kings of Smoothing Out Damage. They've always been really good that way, but what are they now? They actually have to work for it. It's not just shield, shield, shield. You got to put in some work, buddy. Alright, with that, let's move right on in to the abilities. Alright, so here we are, guys. An Angelic Feather, the first ability, is actually a talent, so we're going to pass by that. Dispel Magic. This is your Purge as a Priest. It's going to remove one beneficial magic effect off of your enemy. Fade. Just makes you drop threat, guys, for 10 seconds. 30-second cooldown. Halo is yet another talent. Leap of Faith. This is your life grip. Basically, you're going to pull the party member to you. 1.5 minute cooldown. If you haven't used this thing before, it's really fun for either getting somebody out of stuff or pulling them into it, whichever is best for you. And then you've got Levitate. It does exactly what it says, makes you float off the ground. Hey, look at me. And now I'm creep walking around here. Okay. So, Light's Wrath. What is this? 1.5 minute cooldown. Draws upon the power of Light of Wrath, dealing 87,107 radiant damage. Basically, it's a damaging ability for the Disciplined Priest. Your artifact is a damaging ability, which is suiting. And what you're looking at is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit myself with Atonement and cast this thing so you can see the effect. Here it goes, and boom, looks cool. And depending on how many targets you have affected by your Atonement, it's going to do 10% increased damage on that target. So it's going to do that base 87,000, then 10% for 1, and then 20% increase for 2, and so on and so forth. And it's really awesome. They had a cap on it, and I don't know if it's still a hidden cap from the tooltip, but it was, I believe, a cap of 6 for a while there. It's not there anymore, so maybe they took the cap off to make this thing even better. But each person that you have Atonement on also, guys, whenever you cast this, all that damage, you're also looking at the Atonement benefit, which is great for not only putting out that extra damage, but increasing the amount of healing you're doing. A good burst pop-up. Then there's Mass Dispel. Still one of the Priest's bread and butter, great raid benefit tools. And it's going to 15-second cooldown, high mana cost, and it's going to dispel magic in a 15-yard radius, removing all harmful magic from 10 friendly targets or 1 beneficial magic from 10 enemy targets. And it also works on some abilities that are normally going to be blocked out, so it can't be spell stolen or anything like that, but you can use this and actually remove it. Mass Res does exactly what it says. It's going to be your Mass Resurrection as a Priest. Mind Control, same thing as what it is on live, guys. It's going to allow you to control the mind of the, whatever. It's a CC ability more than anything. Mind Vision allows you to take and look from your actual character over, and hey, look at all these Shadow Priests just getting it on because it's a fun aspect. So, and then you've got Mind Bender. That's a talent. Normally it would be your Shadow Fiend, guys. And the biggest difference is Shadow Fiend's just going to do damage, and it's on a 3-minute cooldown. Mind Bender, as you can see, is 1 minute, and it also returns 0.75% of your mana each time it attacks. So it is also a mana refund, but the increased time on being able to put this thing up more often than what the Shadow Fiend is makes this a really nice healing cooldown also. Pain Suppression, we still got this bad boy, but it's on a 5-minute cooldown. They want you to use this as an oh shit button and not a constant whatever button. Reduces all damage taken by friendly target by 40% for 8 seconds. Castable while stunned. So if the tank is really, really in dire need for this is when you're going to use it. Or if they think they're going to die from the next major ability and they call for it, that's when you're going to want to use it. But 5-minute cooldown, so use it wisely. Penance. Huge difference here, guys. Now, this is going to allow, it's going to say it allows you to heal, and that's the way that I'm spec'd into it. But normally this is just going to be damage, and it lets you cast it while moving. No more glyph needed for that. It's automatic, it's built in. And normally it's going to be for damage, and I'll go over the talents here in a bit, but it's also going to say healing to an ally. But it's still working the same as what it is on live in a damage perspective. Plea is a new ability. It's instant, it's a quick, efficient heal, and this is it. Just does a cool little circle of healing. Oh, wrong button. But there's Plea, and it's going to just apply atonement and do very little healing. Now, the mana cost increases by 100% for each atonement you have active. You can see how it's got 4,104 on there. I'm going to actually click off my atonement, and now it's only 2,052, all right? So the increase in actual mana is going to get pretty insane if you're trying to plea a 20-man mythic raid group. If you're trying to keep plea up on everybody, think of that mana cost on it. It's not going to be efficient at that point, and you're going to want to end up using something like Power Word Radiance, which we'll get into that one real soon, that applies it to more people. Let's see, Power Word Barrier, you still got this. It's still a great cooldown. Summons a holy barrier to protect all allies within its location, preventing 25% damage, or reducing all damage taken by 25%, preventing damage from delaying spellcasting. So, as long as you're in this thing, it's going to work like just one giant bubble. And as you can see, it's got a slightly different look to it, but it looks pretty damn good. So here's Holy Word Radiance. Alright, a burst of light heals a friendly target and their 2 nearest allies for 30. It's really a low amount of healing, but it applies atonement to all 3 of them. So when you cast this thing, and let me see if it pops it up on these guys. Yeah, it's going to, and you've got atonement there, and one of these, yeah, there's the other one. So this is going to be your way of actually applying more. Once you get up into an actual raid group, this is going to be your way of doing a little bit of healing and applying atonement faster to the raid group. You've got Power Word Shield still. Very weak, mind you. Very, very weak. Shields an ally for 15 seconds, absorbing 60,000 damage. Yeah, if you look, 624k, 60,000, that is the first hit off of the tank. It might slowly negate that first tank hit off the tank. Most of the time, the hits are going to be for about double that. So it's very minimal absorption. Nothing spectacular at all, but you can tie it in with the Rapture, and we'll go over that in a minute to really improve your gameplay a bit there. But they did reduce the mana cost. It's only 11,400 mana. Very cheap. It's cheaper than Penance is, so it's still nice to keep it thrown up. Psychic Scream works the same. You basically yell at the enemies and make them run and scared. Blah! Okay, 1 minute cooldown, guys. Damage will interrupt the effect, but it's same as on live. Purify is your dispel still. Works the exact same way. 8-second cooldown, which still sucks having a cooldown on dispels, but it plays into the gameplay. And then you've got Rapture, which is another really neat cooldown. It's instant, 2-minute cooldown. For the next 8 seconds, Power Word Shield has no cooldown. The best thing about this is you can shield spam. You can shield spam for 8 seconds. Alright, so global cooldown, rule of thumb, you should be able to get 8 shields off. Not so much looking at the shield protection, though. What you're looking at is the atonement that a shield will apply. You get atonement from each shield that you end up putting up, and it works out really well. As you can see, shield went up, atonement went up. So it's great for helping apply mass atonements, guys. The shield is a little bit of an extra benefit, but it's really not that great. Resurrection does exactly what it says. It's going to bring a party member back from the dead. Shackle Undead, this is a dead CC unless they end up making it to where it works on something that we're going up against. Currently everything is demons and humanoids, so not much in the undead department right now, unfortunately, so I don't see much use getting out of this. Shadowmend. This is going to be your oh shit heal. This is your flash heal kind of deal. And what is this going to do? It's going to heal the ally for a very good amount, but they'll also take a ticking amount of damage. They'll take a ticking amount of damage, basically 10% of half of that damage every 1 second until they've taken the full amount. So they'll do 10 total ticks. Now, the thing is, if they take half of that damage back that you just healed them for, it cancels out that damage, all right? So you really end up doing all right. And you can also top people off outside of combat with this, because when you leave combat, it no longer does the dot back. It's an interesting ability. Let me, I'll just cast it on myself real quick. Now, it's going to end up ticking down. You're not going to see it because I don't have any loss of health. But what it's going to do is and I'm also not in combat. That's the other thing. Let me see if it'll work on this poor bastard. We'll suck his health dry since he's in combat. See if it works. And nah, it's not going to suck it down, unfortunately. But normally what it'll do is it'll apply atonement, all right? And it's also going to end up doing a really strong heal. It's not that expensive. It's actually cheaper than what penance is. It's a very good go-to quick heal, but again, you've got that thought of, okay, this is going to take health back down. Make sure that whenever you cast this, you're not over-healing at all. I mean, use this to where it's going to be a general, and the sweet spot feels like anywhere between 50 and 80% health. That's going to be like the sweet spot of wanting... Okay, let me rephrase this. About 70% and up, heal them with atonement. Anything less than that, you can go ahead and try and Shadow Man to try and pop them up if you want to keep them up higher. Other than if you know damage is coming, basically, that's the best way to end up playing this thing. 70% or less, hit them with Shadow Man. 70% or higher, just let atonement do its job. We're going to move on though. Shadow Word Pain, exactly as what Shadow does. It's just a dot, guys, and it's also going to act as a hot through atonement. And the nice part about it is, one Shadow Word Pain, you see the damage that's up there. If you've got atonement up on 5 characters, it's going to transfer all that additional healing to everybody. Really a nice gameplay setup, and we'll go over a little more of the gameplay once we get to it. Smite has had a little bit of a rework. Instead of you just smiting the target, okay, let's read it out real quick. It's going to do 32,199 holy damage, not very high, and it absorbs the next 27,000 damage dealt by the enemy. What this does, and you'll watch, just watch for the buff, all right? First one's going to go out, and you'll see it puts it up, okay, 26,000 reduction, and then the next one, 53. So this is going to keep adding up. 79. All right, and it does eventually cap out 79,000. So 3 casts, 79,000 off of the next hit that this target would end up doing. This is a smoothing part that I was talking about. This is going to smooth out the damage on the tank quite a bit, because if they're normally getting hit for, let's say it's a 120k hit, you just took a little more than half of that hit off, and you're not having to worry about the damage on them anymore. And with the way that some of the tanks are healing right now, like if you're doing a Demon Hunter, you don't even really have to worry about healing that Demon Hunter, because he will heal himself just off of the fact that you have smoothed out that damage enough to where he can survive, and it's just a good feel play. So with that, passives, Atonement, Plea, Power Word Shield, Shadow Mend, and Power Word Radiance all apply atonement to your target for 15 seconds. When you deal spell damage, you instantly heal all targets affected by atonement for 40% of the damage. This is going to increase or decrease depending on where your mastery is at. Pretty huge setup. Focused Will. Melee attacks against you cause you to gain Focused Will, reducing damage you take by 15%, stacks up 2 times, and lasts for 8 seconds. Pretty decent damage reduction if a mob is jumping on your face. And then your mastery, it's new, it's Absolution, increase the healing transfer through atonement by 28%. Really good piece for them to add in here, so you can actually buff yourself as you end up damaging. You don't have to be more of a single target spec or anything, and we'll go over the talents and talk about that a little bit more. In fact, let's do that right now, and we'll leave some of this for the gameplay side. Alright, so here we are looking at the talents, guys, and I did go more of a actual healer build than a complete damage build, for the simple fact that Atonement just wasn't enough as an individual healer. Yeah, you do still have Shadow Man, and you can still end up doing a lot more damage than what I ended up putting out. But I wanted to make sure that my tank survived, because some of them just get pummeled to death. So with that, we're going to go on to the level 15 talents. And the very first one is the Penitent. And like I said before in the abilities, normally Penance just allows you to damage, but this is a passive. It makes Penance castable on a friendly target, healing them and making it work more like live. As to where, again, right now, if you don't have this talent, it's just a DPS ability. Castigation. Passive. Penance fires one additional bolt of Holy Light over its duration. So instead of you getting, 4? I want to say it's 4 bolts. Here, well, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah, it'll shoot 4 bolts instead of the normal 3. So that's what you're looking at with Castigation. And then you've got Schism. Really, this is an awesome buff, guys. If you're damaging, if you're questing, if you're going more of an Atonement smooth out build or raid healing, which that's way Atonement really feels is more of a raid healer right now. And what it's looking at is 6-second cooldown, 1.27 second cast, and the attack is going to do shadow damage, but that's not what you're looking at. You're looking at the increased damage that you deal to the target for 30 seconds for the next 6 seconds. So you're looking at timed play with this. Basically, you're going to want to cast this and then follow it up with a Penance and then possibly a Smite or 2 if you can fit them in there, just to get that extra boost in the healing. And it really helps out, like I said, especially in an AoE situation where you have Atonement on everybody. The only problem is, in a single target situation, Atonement doesn't heal for much unless you're using, you'll have to swap over to Shadow Mend, so this makes the play a little bit differently. But if you're trying to smooth out the damage on an entire raid, this is an awesome way to end up going, and you do that so much extra damage. Level 30, Angelic Feather. If you haven't played with this on live, guys, you don't have a priest, and unfortunately Shadow no longer gets this, but you still get it on both Dis and Holy, so good job there. I enjoy my feathers and I play with them nicely. Body and Soul is the same as on live though, guys. Power Word Shield will basically and Leap of Faith cause your target's movement speed to increase by 40% for 3 seconds, so they add Leap of Faith in there. Nothing too great. And then Masochism. When you cast Shadow Mend on yourself, its damage over time actually heals you instead, so it turns into a hot. So you'll heal you'll cast it on you, and instead of taking that half of the heal back down, it'll actually heal you instead. Really, it's not that great. If you're avoiding stuff, maybe questing, I know it worked nice on Shadow while questing for that extra heal, but as a healer already and having Atonement, really it wasn't needed. Even questing as Discipline. Again, I did quest as both Holy and Discipline just to get a feel of what it was like in the open world, and it was solid. I mean, it was really damn solid on Discipline. 45, Shining Force. This is going to... It's just a knockback, guys. Basically, this is going to be a targeted elemental thunderstorm, to where it knocks everything away and causes the slow, but it's on the target instead of on yourself. And then Psychic Voice just reduces the cooldown of Psychic Scream by 30 seconds. Nothing big there. Dominate Mind was fun to play with in dungeons. It really was. Until it, the thing died off after 1 minute. But basically, you can use your mind control, alright? And mind control is going to control the mind of something up to 1 level higher than you. This actually doesn't make you take control of that thing. It turns it into a pet. So I was using this thing on pulls. Basically, caster would be up in the far end. I'd cast this and just have the pet just do what kind of damage it could. And usually at the end of the trash pull, after that 1 minute, half the group would be dead. It would come loose, and it just helped out a ton. Really fun to play with in dungeons, guys. And it was also fun to end up messing with on larger pulls out in the real world, just pulling out a pet for a minute and then nuking it down after you killed everything else. Level 60, Power Word Solace. This thing is awesome. And again, this goes off of if you're doing cleave fights, if you're doing like a I'm sorry, this is the wrong ability, but this is basically going to be another damaging ability. In fact, I think it's almost the same as what's on live, to where it restores mana and it also ends up doing holy damage. I was thinking one completely different. I was thinking Purge the Wicked, guys. We'll get to that in a minute. But Power Word Solace strikes an enemy with heavenly power, dealing X amount of holy damage and restoring. It's just another damaging instant ability. It's a good little pop-up. Nothing great. Except another button to hit throughout the whole process. Then you got Shield Discipline. When you Power World Shield is completely absorbed, you instantly regenerate 1% of your maximum mana. There's no fun in that. Shield doesn't do a whole hell of a lot anyways, except apply Atonement. And this didn't seem to really do much. And then you've got Mindbender. It replaces a Shadow Fiend, but on a 1 minute cooldown, alright, we're going to just go ahead and show you real quick. On a 1 minute cooldown, if you really need it, it's not a lot of healing, but you throw out the Mindbender, and you can see 10,000 every second whenever it heals, and you're getting mana back. Now imagine if you've got 5 people with Atonement up, that is a really good healing cooldown also over that 12 seconds, and it's a good way to help burst people up. It played very nice into this new setup. With the damage, as to where the other two, Power Word Solace was just an additional button, but it didn't do a whole hell of a lot. It was very weak healing through Atonement, which is the only way you're going to get any healing. It was a little bit of damage, nothing much. And the mana regen, whatever, it wasn't that great. Shield Discipline, same thing, just wasn't that great. Mindbender, on the other hand, had some thought to it, and it was really fun to use. Contrition, passive, increases Atonement duration by 2 seconds. If you're having a hard time, and I'm going to say not a hard time, but if you're needing to keep Atonement up longer, like if you are covering AoE and you're needing to keep Atonement up on more people while you're damaging and so on and so forth, this may be the better way to end up going. Did I go that route? No, not for these 5-mans. They've nerfed him down pretty easy. Power Infusion, this is also a very nice cooldown. Increases your haste by 25%, reduces mana cost of all spells by 20%. I didn't have an issue with mana too much. It was a little bit on the high side, especially when you started using Plea instead of reworking what kind of mana efficient spells you want to use for keeping Atonement up. If you started pleaing a whole hell of a lot, it got expensive. And with that being said, guys, that this one really wasn't that much. Now, in a situation, again, if you're needing to put a bunch of pleas up, or if you're running mythic content, this might be a way to go just to reduce that mana cost and get more out of it. But I did go Twist of Fate, because after healing a target below 35% health and you deal 20% increased damage and 20% increased healing, this is nice, because you do have some tanks that drop down real low, and even though they're low, they're not in a danger zone. Same thing with some of your regular DPS. Not a lot has changed in that department, guys, to where they're going to take that spike in damage, you're going to be low, and the next thing you know, you're doing 20% increased damage and healing, and you're able to just pop everybody back up. Really nice, and I felt like I had a decent amount of uptime with this ability. Level 90, Clarity of Will. Yeah, if you want to go that route, I mean, it's there. It's the same thing. If you really feel like you need to be that solid tank healer, if the tank is just getting destroyed, this may be the way to go. But it doesn't fit this model anymore, guys. I mean, it's nice having that shield. You're going to be able to pad some crap with that. But it doesn't fit this model, unfortunately. It's another button. Feels like it's just clunky. And then you've got Divine Star. Works the same, guys. You throw the Divine Star forward, it comes back, it does healing and damage for 24 yards forward, and then when it comes back, it does the same thing. Nothing great out of it. If groups stack, this is going to be the way to go. Halo, if the groups spread, this is going to be the way to go. 40-second cooldown, works the same as on live, and basically you're going to cast it out. That's it, guys. You're going to see the healing go out. Nothing big, and it also does damage. Level 100, Purge the Wicked. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about. This replaces Shadow Word Pain, And basically, it's going to work the same way. It's going to do initial damage up front, and then it's going to do ticking damage over 20 seconds. But instead of shadow, it's fire damage, guys. Now, if you cast Penance on that target, this thing's got a cleave effect, and it's going to spread to the next target. So we'll go ahead and take it, and we'll just show you, see if it'll spread onto that big boy over there. Alright, you see it up there. Now we're going to cast Penance, and it actually missed. So that didn't work out too well. Let's see if we can get it to pop up there, hopefully. And we'll cast it one more time. And did it go? No, it keeps missing, unfortunately. But what it'll do is it'll actually jump to the next one. And then if you cast it again, it'll jump to another one. And it's awesome for trash pulls. It'll be awesome for cleave fights, because each time this ticks, if you've got Atonement on you, let's go ahead and throw that out. It's not a whole hell of a lot of healing, but it's just passive all the way through and through, as you can see. And again, it's just non-stop extra healing for what you're getting. Now it's showing this 15 and all that. That's not really it. It's actually the 20. Yeah. Again, not a lot, guys, but it still ends up doing really well, and it's a good amount of damage. And then Grace, again, I went more single target. This is it's passive, increases your non-atonement healing and absorption by 30% on targets with atonement. Alright, so I had a technical difficulty while I was talking about Grace, but again, like I was saying, if you apply atonement, basically what you're looking at is you're going to get the atonement, and it did 27,000 in healing, and this is going to end up allowing it to go again. And hold on, let me put it on myself. Alright, so that did 54. That's a lie. Anyways, it would normally do 27, then you get 35 out of it, and the same thing goes with your penance. It's not a whole hell of a lot, but it does help out a ton. And as you can see, we're still having a little bit of lag problems here, but I wanted to get through this real fast. And then you've got Shadow. This is great for single target healing, guys. It helps out with actual healing instead of atonement. Shadow Covenant, on the other hand, this is a weird deal. This does not apply atonement, guys, when you cast it. But what it's going to do is heal up to 5 injured allies within 30 yards of the target for 60,000, but leaves a shell on them that absorbs the next 30,000 health. This is basically an AoE Shadow Mend with a shield instead of a damage it dot. Now I'm gonna cast this, and maybe it'll show the shield. I don't think it will, because nobody's in combat. This guy. Anyways, if I were in combat, actual combat, this would end up applying a shield, and it's not a very expensive heal. It's good for popping people back up. But the thing is, if you're taking a huge amount of damage, you're going to be causing a very big issue with actually letting the other healers catch back up. So this might work if you pop it up, let them heal off the shield a bit, pop it up. But it does a huge amount of healing. I mean, you can end up getting this thing to where it's pretty damn solid. But it's got a very, very touch and go. I mean, it's going to really depend. If you use this thing in an AoE situation, how good are your other healers? Are they going to be able to support you? And this is part of the sustain, what I was talking about. This is going to bounce people up. They're not so much about healing, they're about sustaining. It's going to bounce them up. But what the hell is going to happen after that? If you're by yourself, you're more than likely not going to be able to heal that off, because they are not strong healers. You're going to need another healer next to you to actually take care of the healing to get these shields off. With that, guys, we're actually going to move on to the artifact. Alright, so here we are with Light's Wrath. Pretty damn good looking staff, if I say so. I enjoy this thing. It's got a lot of different color schemes, and they're really bright. Looks good. Let's let it spin around real quick. But it's kind of got that stained glass look, like a cathedral stained glass, and it looks really interesting. I enjoy it quite a bit, but this is going to be your base model. And then you got Crest of the Redeemed. Sick. I love this thing. Absolutely love it. Looks awesome. Really nice piece. And you'll see there's an additional set on this one compared to the others. We'll go over that here in just a second. This is... every one is supposed to have a hidden model. And then you've got Chalice of the Light, another really good looking staff enjoyable. Love it, love it, love it, love it. This one here is a very nice piece compared to some of them. The rogue daggers, they look like shit. The hunter BM hunters, that crap looks like shit. Now here's your PvP ones, just ungodly good compared to what some of them are. And then Ascended Watch, this is the hidden one. They don't have it out how you can actually get this, but this thing's amazing, guys. And I don't know if this is going to be for clearing content or where it's going to be coming from. It'll end up popping up, but man, it looks really good. I don't know if this is challenge modes. Nobody said anything, but there's very few of them that actually have this 5th one showing in the appearances. Let this thing spin around and take a damn good look at it, because it is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And here you go. That's the base, gold and white. It looks so damn good. Really enjoying it, guys. But that's going to be it for the skins. And really awesome, awesome pieces. Let's go ahead and move on to the actual traits, though. Alright. Light's Wrath. We talked about this a little bit in the abilities already. 1.5 minute cooldown. This is the ability you end up getting with this thing. And it's going to do 87,000. It's going to do a heavy amount of damage, guys. But it also increases 10% per ally affected by Atonement. You want to make sure you're maximizing this as best as possible. And use this as an AoE cooldown, more or less. You're going to have all these people with Atonement on already. If you got enough up there, you're going to cast this thing. It's going to do a shit ton of damage. And it's also going to do a shit ton of healing along with it, depending on how much mastery you got. It's going to depend on how much healing. So very first thing, right outside the door, you get Invoke the Light. And it increases the damage dealt by Smite by 15%. This is going to work great for Atonement. It's also, if you end up noticing, it's going to, it's not going to do more shielding, but hey, it's going to end up helping out quite a bit. That's why you've got that little bridge gap. Before you actually get this, if you looked at the abilities, and you saw that there's a little bit of extra damage compared to what the actual shield was, normally that's even, but this is the 15% increased damage added on. So we'll go to Confession, rank 0 of 3. Increases damage and healing done by penance by 2%, 2, 4, and 6, pretty obvious. Timing the Shadows, Shadowman has a 15% chance to deal no damage. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So 15% chance of making a really nice heal without having any of the negativity to it whatsoever. Really enjoy that. Good, clutch, but manageable? No. It's just going to be like, holy shit, thank you, Lord, for saving this tank's ass. I appreciate it. And we're going to move on to the next ability. Vestments of Discipline, 0 of 3. Activating Fade reduces all damage you take by 3% for 6 seconds. 3, 6, 9. General Thought, not bad. Pain is in your mind, a 0 of 3. Reduces the cooldown of pain suppression by 10 seconds. So this will be 30 seconds off of it. What does that really mean? Not a whole hell of a lot, because that's still a 5-minute cooldown, guys. You're going to bring it down to 4.5 minutes. Not very many fights where you're going to need a cooldown every 4.5 minutes, unless it's really situational. Barrier of the Barrier of the Devoted. Passive increases healing done by Atonement by 100% on targets inside your power word barrier. So this is going to add some gameplay to it, a little bit of preparation. You're going to want that Atonement up, and then you're going to want to end up throwing down power word barrier, go to town, and it's basically going to allow you to become an AoE god. Discipline feels a little bit more focused on that AoE, smoothing out the damage, being more of a padding. And again, like I've been saying, it's not the shield anymore, but it is very, very good on sustain. Not complete healing, but sustaining, and then they're doing that extra damage on top, which can be pretty decent. Doomsayer, rank 0 of 3. Increase the duration of Rapture by 1 second, so 1, 2, and 3 seconds. So it goes from a 8-second cooldown to a 11-second cooldown. What does that mean? That basically means 3 additional bubbles and 3 more people getting Atonement. Speed of the Pious. You move 30% faster while casting Penance. Alright. Again, most of the time you're going to use Penance when it's normally off cooldown in a DPS situation. So this is nothing really. It's kind of bland 100%. And then you've got Borrowed Time, rank 0 of 3. Applying Atonement to a target reduces the cast time of your next Smiter Light's Wrath by 5% or causes your next penance to channel 5% faster. This is cool because this is going to give some gameplay change to where you're going to be rotating out your Pleas or whatever you end up casting. You're going to rotate those out with a Smite or, you know, your Light's Wrath or your Penance, whatever's up. This is going to give a little bit of a gameplay situation. That's going to be 5, 10, or 15%. Really nice, really nice piece. Sins of the Many, rank 0-1, increases all damage you deal by 1% per ally affected by your atonement. Yes, please. I mean, if you're doing a good AoE situation and you've got 10, 15, hell, if you can keep it up on 20 people, all that extra damage, the more people that you have atonement on, the more you're going to be able to heal. And again, this is going on that AoE sustained build that I keep talking about. They're feeling more sustained. You're going to have all these people with atonement on them. You're going to end up starting to do damage. It's not only going to bring their health up faster, but you're also doing extra damage to help push. Very nice on the sustaining side. The Edge of Dark and Light, rank 0 or 3. Increased damage dealt by Shadow Word Pain by 5, 10, or 15%. Excellent. Darkest Shadows, 0 or 3. Increases healing done by Shadowmen by 3, 6, or 9, possibly 10%. Burst of Light, increased healing done by Shadow Covenant by 5, 10, or 15%. Now, you might have gone over the Shadow Covenant again. Let me just pull it up so you know which one that is. Alright. Shadow Covenant's actually the talent. So, it'll normally be the Holy Radiance is what it'll normally end up being, guys. Because I had the talent, though, it did automatically update to the Shadow Covenant. So, it'll be 5, 10, or 15% on Radiance or Shadow Covenant, whichever one it turns out being. Power of the Dark Side. Shadow Word Pain has a chance to increase damage or healing done by your next penance by 100%. So, you get a benefit of keeping your dot up, other than the healing. So, what's wrong with that? It's basically you're running a damaging rotation and keeping atonement up, and you're winning game. Share in the Light, 0-1. Casting Power Word Shield on a target other than yourself also shields you for 15% as much. The shield's not that great. Not that great at all. I mean, it's okay. And then you got Shield of Faith, which is going to help that problem. 0 or 3, 5, 10, or 15%, but it's going to increase the damage absorption from Power Word Shield by X amount. This is going to play out nicely with this because of extra ruptures. You can see where this is going. It's not about completely doing absorbs and shielding and all that, but this is going to be all about minimizing damage, guys, or, you know, sustaining damage, where someone takes a huge amount of damage and you're just DPSing your ass off and you're keeping the group afloat as to where you're reliant on your other healers to actually get them top back up. Really good structure. I see a good spot for these in raiding still, as long as you've got the mentality to do this along with raid mechanics. That's going to be the tough part because there is a lot going on. And with that, let's move on to the gameplay. So after being balls deep in this thing for about 20 hours of questing, because I wanted to test the open world with it, and also ended up throwing a lot of dungeons underneath the belt with this thing, it was an awesome experience. A real interesting experience, guys. And the reason for that is there's a lot going on with this spec. You've got a lot of things to think about. This and the Sub Rogue are currently by far the two that you really seem to think about quite a bit out of all the specs that I've ran so far. And I did the Sub Rogue, released it just yesterday for you guys. So we're looking at this one, and I wanted to say, hell yeah. Where do I see this spec? I don't see this spec as being top dog for single, like, 5-man's challenge mode, stuff like that. It does do pretty good, and if you got a good self-sustaining tank, then it's going to do really, really well in that situation. But if not, if you've got one that doesn't heal very well, if you're running, let's say, a druid. Druids don't have a whole hell of a lot of healing, and they've got a shit ton of health. You don't heal for a hell of a lot single target unless you're spamming Shadow Mend or you've taken it to Penitence, made it to where Penance will actually heal the tank. And even then, with their health pool, it's going to cost you a lot of mana and it might tax you out. But in a situation with a good self-sustaining tank to where you're just sustaining some damage on them, and you're keeping the group afloat, you're going to do very well in most situations. Now, one thing I will end up saying with this is your power word shield, use that for atonement purposes only. Don't try and use it as a clutch. Okay, we got to stop this damage and this is going to do it. No, it's like throwing paper in front of a sword. It's not doing a whole hell of a lot, but you are still playing very nicely. Now, in a lot of the AoE situations, you're going to see to where I'm actually applying Plea, using Plea or even Holy Radiance. Somehow I'm getting Atonement placed onto these, the rest of the group, and I'm also keeping... The only person I'm really using Shadow Mend on, unless it is a super clutch situation, is going to be the tank. Because the tank's going to take a little bit of extra damage, and that's going to be fine, because that means it's not going to lose the damage through the actual ticking dot that they end up getting. Really nice gameplay style, guys. Really interesting to get involved in. And I'm saying really a lot because, man, it is really that damn good. Fun spec. Do I see them being #1 healers? No, I do not. Just for the simple fact, I keep mentioning they are not really healing. They're sustaining. There's a lot better out there to actually get the damage flow taken care of. Now, the thing is, in a 5-man situation, if you do not go single target healing like most of the specs, what you're looking at is your own challenge mode on some of the bosses, especially in the higher content. When I got to test this more on the heroics back in alpha, one of the things that I noticed was this healer kind of has a time limit, because your mana flow, for one, for two, your healing and your damage, you're eventually going to run out of mana well before a boss dies if you aren't doing your part in the damage. It's an interesting gameplay. It's kind of like starting a timer and you've got X amount of time before you're going to just end up being shit thrown on your face. And it's a good gameplay, guys. It's really challenging. It's fun. It can keep you very well interested. The only problem I see, though, is people trying to do this and not having a clue on what they're doing. All in all, spec is working wonderful. AoE situations, you're just going to put your atonement on the people that need it, and you're going to damage. And when you damage with smite, you're going to end up watching your you're going to smooth out that damage on the tank also. If the tank takes a huge hit, you're going to use Shadow Mend on them more than likely. And then you're going to also make sure that they've got atonement through your power word shield, and you're running it just like normal. There's a few other catches here or there that you can end up doing. Clutch situation, huge AoE getting ready to happen, and you one of the places, I'll even try and show it here, one of the places that I end up showing this skill being used was on the giant, King whatever his name is. I cannot think of his name for some damn reason, but one of the things he does is that gaseous bubble, and I noticed that somebody wasn't clearing it, so I was able to use Rupture, and this was allowing me to premeditate that damage almost like you would on live. And Rapture, Holy Rogue, way too much. Use Rapture, you can end up bubbling up, doing some self-sustain, but also getting those atonements out, so after the damage happens, you can go right into actually healing everybody up through atonement. And the main way you can end up doing that's Light's Wrath. Toss out Light's Wrath, and next thing you know, everyone's popping up really nice because of all that extra damage, and it feels good. Really, guys, this is going to be your #1 mixed spec. It's going to be great for sustain. Not #1 healer, but definitely not the bottom. Feels good, very entertaining, extremely entertaining. And with that, we're going to move on to the log so you can take a look at what's really going on with it. Alright guys, so here we are, we're looking at the logs, and as you can see, by obvious choice, Atonement is the top. By a decent amount. Average heal on it was going to be about 7k, maximum was 63, And that's going to be from more or less my Light's Wrath. Whenever I cast it, it does a huge truckload of healing from the damage, and it's really nice. And 122 hits from, or heals from this thing. Really nice, good coverage, but 36.79% was overhealing. You're not going to be able to control that overhealing unless you're controlling your atonement to a T. Shadowmend, pretty clutch on that. As you can see, I had 2 Demon Hunters, and one of them was just getting crushed. It actually wasn't the tank. The tank was the second one on there. The other one, I want to say, took a spear to the face. This is Warlord Parjesh, by the way. The fight is the first boss out of Eye of Ashara, and he throws spears, and Fellskull there, I believe he ended up taking one to the face, and that's why it's so high up. So normally it wouldn't be that high, but the average heal was 104,000. Alright? Critical heal on that, was 181,000. I only crit once with it, but still, that is really nice to end up seeing this general increase in heals on the Shadowmend. That was one of the biggest issues. This thing was not healing as well as it was, and it was taking away too much damage. Now they've got it set to where it works really nice. And then you've got Power Word Shield. 5 casts, 8 hits off of it. Now they're considering every hit off of the Power Word Shield. Every hit that's absorbed is counted on there. But you can see the average hit was 72,000 that got absorbed. Really nice. And then Smite. This is the damage buffer from Smite. So as you're casting Smite, this is the amount of damage. 557,000 damage was actually absorbed through this mechanic. This is another part of the sustaining side that I keep mentioning. This is going to keep your tank from... that was 557,000 damage that the tank did not take to the face whenever I was able to cast Smite and not go clutch heal with Shadowmend and all that. So really nice mechanic added in there, really good for smoothing out damage, and I see a real good spot for this in a lot of progression groups. Atonement, this is going to be your critical hits, alright, regular hit atonements, and then you've actually got crit atonement, which is off to the side. So not only is this way up here right now doing 948,000, but you got to add another extra 250,000 on top of that for all the crits that were actually hit, and way over healing on those. Plea actually heals pretty decent for an instant. It's not by any means what you would use in a clutch situation. This is just going to be your general applier for atonement, but it works out for a decent heal. Power Word Radiance, general AoE, not too bad. Penance, single target heal. I didn't end up using it as often as I wanted to. It only ended up getting a few hits. And that's because I had a Demon Hunter that was pretty well self-sustained. So I didn't have to worry about it as much, because right here, this is all the healing that I was actually having to do to the Demon Hunter, because he was just taking care of himself. A little bit of atonement, and then right here. So I did have a couple of these Shadowmends from whenever he got hit, because they do get trucked. But he was pretty solid, and he ended up healing himself in most of the situations. And then you've got Halo. If you've used Halo in live, it works exactly the same. It does that little bit of damage, and then you've also got, you know, your general healing for the ranged. Not as strong as it used to be. Touch of the Grave, this is just passive. This is the heal that I end up getting from doing damage from the racial. And then I had some leech. So nothing big here, guys. But let's take a look at the actual damage side of it. Now here's the damage side. Alright, Smite, 1.15 mil in damage. Pretty decent. Penance, pretty high up on damage. Halo, this all accumulated to about 23,000. This was at level 103. Well, let me go ahead and just swap it over. I normally don't do this for DPS meters. And what you'll end up seeing is 23,360 was the damage. Obviously, I'm on bottom, but I'm also healing. But I still contributed almost 10% to the boss's actual damage. And then you look at the healing, and I wasn't much higher than this. This was a level 110 Demon Hunter, so he was pretty spot on. But you can see absorbs to actual heals really wasn't that much different. And this was a fun situation, but at the same time, again, you can't really look too much at these meters because they're still being tuned. 110 compared to 103, and so on and so forth. Really, guys, fun situation. And all in all, this was great. I mean, it was a great spec to play. And hopefully this ends up helping you see a little bit of what you wanted with this spec. And if you did enjoy this thing, guys, you know what to do. Slap that like button, throw a subscription, and we'll definitely get you the best content in. But until then, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.